So, how are we doing after karma? Not mentally well, I'm assuming, because I know I'm not. And I know if I don't talk about this, I'm going to explode. I'm going to explode. So, here we are.
I brought the mic a little bit closer.
This video is going to be split up into 3 parts: what alien stage is, the events of karma, and my analysis of what happens within karma. This video was recorded before the post-karma comics, so anything that was revealed during the comics I won't be going over. The sections are all marked in the chapters below, so feel free to go to whichever section pleases you. Okay? Let's get started with some trauma! Yay! So first, what is Alien Stage? Alien Stage is an animated video series made by Vivinos and Qmengs, who are a lesbian Korean couple. Please keep this in mind while watching this video because it's important to the themes that are explored in Alien Stage. The general background of the video series is that a long time ago, humans have gotten enslaved by aliens, which are also known as Segin, but for my own English-speaking convenience, I will be referring to them as aliens. And once they got enslaved by the aliens, humans henceforth have been treated similarly to pets. Not quite the same, but more or less the same. After many decades of enslavement, a show starts getting popular with the aliens because humans are enslaved, called Alien Stage, which has 2 humans singing against each other in a competition. The winner lives and the loser gets killed on stage. This show gets extremely popular with the aliens, and our cast is now on the show for season 50. Okay, so we are going to go through what actually happens in the video. No analysis, just what we can see in the video. If you want to get to the analysis, please skip this portion of the video. Thank you. Karma immediately takes place after the events of Ouija, where Luca and Hyuna meet for the first time since she disappeared about a year ago, and during that music video, Hyuna gets shot and dies in Luca's arms. Yeah, talk about traumatic. While Luca is still in shock over seeing the girl he's loved since childhood and hearing her complex feelings for him, not being able to forgive him for killing her twin brother Hyunwoo and SAing her, but still in love with him somehow, and her dying in his arms immediately after that, Mizzy comes up and beats his ass. Rightfully so. And tells him to stop pretending like he's morally superior. After leaving Luca to his grief and sins in the figure of Hyunwoo, Missy walks over to Isaac and shoots him in the leg. While he's obviously reeling in pain, Mizzy takes his laptop and proceeds to shut down Hyuna's rocket to make it hit the alien stage that they're currently on, and sobs while holding her laptop to prevent anyone else from undoing that decision. After this, we get some clips of the dynamics of each of the relationships, which I will not be going through in this part because that is all analysis. That is actually the primary reason that I made this video, so that is not in this section at all. It's gonna be a long section later though. Ooh boy! Okay, so this part is a little bit confusing because this is all of the main character women in the series, so I am going to bring my little figures to make it a little bit easier, okay? Hold on a second. Wait a second, please. Okay, I have brought my figures. I mean, they're not really figures as much as like standees, but same difference, same difference. Also, thank you, anime. They didn't have any of the guys. The guys all got sold out by the time that I got there. But aren't they pretty? They're so gorgeous and traumatizing. Oh my god. So Mizzy confesses to Hyuna that she knew all along that Suwa was planning on losing their round against each other. Mizzy versus Suwa. And Mizzy was just pretending to be ignorant of everything that was happening around her. That Mizzy couldn't let Suwa be the one to survive with the guilt knowing that she killed her beloved. And because of that, Mizzy feels like she didn't love Suwa as much as Suwa loved her. But that doesn't change the fact that Mizzy did love Suwa, just not in the same self-sacrificing way that Suwa loved Mizzy. You get it? You get it? Okay. I hope this helped. As the rocket falls and catches on fire, mirages of the main cast and the rest of their fellow orphanage mates as children appear falling from the sky. The mirages are all smiling and laughing with each other, while the mirages of Mizzy and Suwa age up to their My Clematis versions and share a passionate kiss. The rocket crashes into the alien stage, setting the whole stage on fire, killing and injuring some people and aliens in the wreckage. After this, there is a scene from the past of Mizzy berating Hyuna for never coming to terms with her feelings for Luca. Then, while everyone is panicking and trying to escape the fire, Luca is still in shock about Hyuna and gets caught in the fire. Mizzy holds Till close and mourns his death. An image of Suwa appears and covers her protectively. However, while doing this, Mizzy hears Till's heartbeat and realizes he's still alive. She runs to Isaac, the man she just shot in the leg, and begs him to save Till. The video cuts to black, and we have a quick scene of Mizzy running to Suwa while Suwa is planning her death, and Mizzy gives her a kiss and a hug. Cut to black again, and we get some words from Isaac saying that true innocence is not something that those in danger can't afford to have. But love and hope are things that we can always afford to have. It's now 7 years later after the rocket crash, now known as the alien stage tragedy, and we see various billboards mentioning the tragedy, advocating against the enslavement of humans, Luca's return to the stage. We're talking about that more later. The opening of a museum about the tragedy, and a wanted poster of a mysterious masked person. After that, we see the same mysterious masked person break through the window of a shady-looking building with a motorcycle. And that person saves some human children from being sold off. And the mysterious masked person points to a map and asks the children, without using any words, about where a certain place is. We then see an area commemorating the 50th iteration of Alien Stage, which is the events that we have seen throughout the series. We're in the Alien Stage Tragedy Museum. In that place, we also see 5 children behind glass, like a display. All 5 of the children look like mixes of the main cast. Pointedly, heterosexual mixes of the main cast. We're getting into that later. But soon after, we take a good look over the museum and we see the mysterious masked person drive up on their motorcycle and take off their helmet, revealing themselves as Till, alive but with a new look, and he smiles. Okay, so now we can get into depth about the video. There were some parts that I skipped over in the plotline section because they were more symbolic rather than literal, so I saved talking about them for this section. So starting with what Mizzy said to Luca after beating his ass, rightfully. She said to Luca, "Stop pretending to be righteous. Neither you nor I deserve to be saved. I believe that her words are both meant for Luca and herself. The second half of this is pretty straightforward, so I want to focus on the first half of her quote. What exactly does Mizzy mean by stop pretending to be righteous? So for Luca, there are a couple of different angles that we can go about here. Don't pretend that everything that you did to get to this point is justified. Don't pretend that you can just act like you're the good guy after all of this. And my personal favorite, don't pretend that your love is more morally superior than mine. So, I personally believe that it's a mix of all three, but especially that last one, because when Luca was competing against both Mizzy and Till, he uses their traumas involving love against them to win. I would also like to point out that Mizzy and Till's love traumas that Luca decided to take advantage of were both homosexual. You could say that it's just Luca's MO to take advantage of others' weaknesses to win, but as we don't see round 4 and we know that Till has a crush on Mizzy, Luca could have just used Till's love for Mizzy against him, since at that point nobody knew if Mizzy was alive or dead. But instead, Luca decides to specifically use their homosexual relationship ties against them. And giggled while doing it too!
I would beat his ass too.
I can imagine that for Mizzy, seeing Luca grieve Hyuna's death so sincerely and so emotionally was triggering as hell. She probably has so much guilt, not even probably, she definitely has so much guilt over Sua's death and probably doesn't feel like she has the right or the ability to grieve over her. And after all of the shit that Luca put her and Till through during their rounds, and subsequently causing Till's supposed, we didn't know at this point, death, I would have crashed out too. I would have beaten his ass too. Maybe not beat his ass because I'm not like a super violent person, but maybe I would have if I was grown up in the exact same environment. Maybe I would have beaten his ass. I don't know. I would have crashed out. I know for a fact I would have crashed out. I don't know how, but I would have definitely crashed out somehow. I don't know how. Just somehow. Like, could you imagine that the person who made fun of your relationship and the death of your partner and also caused the death of your friend is now crying because they just also lost their beloved, who was also your friend as well? I would be pissed. Because how come you are able to grieve over your beloved with no issues without worrying that it's going to be used against you, but I get made fun of? That's unfair and hypocritical. And the fact that Mr. Manipulative Straight Man Luca has the right to be sad over losing his beloved, but Miss Yuri Universe can't? And let's also remember that all of this happened within the span of like a month, with no time to grieve over the people that you've lost. I can almost guarantee that the majority of people would have also crashed the fuck out. I know I would have, maybe not to the extreme of beating his ass, but anything that I do in a moment like that cannot be held against me. So, back to the actual analysis after that rant. Righteous has many different synonyms: good, ethical, moral, but I think for Mizzy, when directing the phrase to herself, it just means innocent. Later in the video, and in some Patreon comics, we learned that Mizzy knew all along what would happen on Alien Stage and what would happen to whoever loses. However, until Karma, she pretended to be ignorant of everything. She's telling herself to stop pretending to be innocent and that her faux innocence has led to her beloved's death, and because of that, she has to suffer. That's my interpretation of this section anyway. The next section that I want to go over is a lot smaller, really quick. It's about the scene when little Mizzy is being held by two other children and a heart appears between all three of them and it starts spreading its veins through all of them. I think that this is representative of all of them craving and searching for love and togetherness to the point where it influences them and their actions. Okay, next, really long section that I want to go over is the romance dynamic scenes. Before starting on any of them, I would like to state that obviously the black ooze that appears throughout each of the couples is representative of the toxicity of their relationships. Okay, so now that that's out of the way, let's go over the relationship dynamics in order of which couple shows up first, starting with Ivan Till. In the Ivan Till section, we see Ivan spit out a heart-shaped gem and proceed to try to force it into Till's mouth with his own while crying. While doing this, the heart shatters and oozes out a black liquid. This is not only a replication of what happened in round 6, but also a representation of their relationship. Ivan forced his love upon Till, which is a completely toxic way to handle a relationship. I have seen some thoughts that the heart on Ivan's collar is Till's, and while I agree, don't put away your pitchforks. Put away your pitchforks. I agree. I do want to elaborate more on that point. While Ivan's heart, once exposed, is more obvious, it's bigger, and he tries to force it upon Till, Till's heart is smaller, partially hidden, and willingly already given to Ivan. I think that this shows that while Till does have some feelings for Ivan, it wasn't as apparent as Ivan's feelings for Till, which Ivan mistook Till as only liking him as a friend, when in actuality, it was more like if there was more time and more honest communication, Till's feelings for Ivan would have developed into something more. I would also like to point out that Ivan's heart was completely hidden in his mouth until the moment he decided to force it upon Till. If Ivan's heart wasn't completely hidden, I can imagine that Till's heart would have been able to develop more. I can also imagine that if Till's heart was in a place that Ivan could see, because Till's heart was on Ivan's collar, which is pretty hard to see, you can't really see it at all without looking in a mirror, Ivan wouldn't have felt obligated to hide his heart from Till in the first place. However, despite saying all of this, it still doesn't change the fact that Ivan forced himself upon Till. Essay is wrong, in case you didn't know, and the intent behind an action or someone's difficult upbringing doesn't change the fact that an action taken against another without their explicit consent is still wrong. And that also includes when you're married or dating someone. Just because you're married or dating someone doesn't mean they have access to your body at all points in time. Speaking of married couples, let's move on to the next couple, Hyun Luka, which is Hyuna and Luka. In their section, we see an image of Luka, shocked and crying, with black ooze dripping off his face, holding Hyuna in his arms, and Hyun-woo draped on his back. Hyuna is clutching her chest with a heart shattered and oozing black liquid, and Luka is holding an unshattered heart in his right hand. Judging by the fact that the shattered heart pieces are not only on Hyuna, but also in Luka's left hand, I think this represents how Luka was always trying to get Hyuna's heart, and once he did, their reunion hug in ways, it was also the same time that he learned exactly how she felt about him, which is the complex feelings of loving him despite him being the same guy that killed her twin brother Hyun-woo, and not being able to forgive herself for still loving him despite that. Hyuna also died in Luka's arms, hence the pose that they were in. After Luka learns of Hyuna's guilt about loving him after everything that he's done, Luca now carries the guilt of that action of killing Hyunwoo. He carries that guilt on his back. Hence, Hyunwoo being on Luca's back in the scene. Okay, last couple, Mizisua. My baby girls. I love their designs so much. They are so pretty. For their part, we see an image of them upside down, naked, with a transparent veil over both of them, facing each other with black ooze dripping down their faces from their mouth as they slowly open their eyes to look at each other while holding their hearts in their mouths and bringing their hearts together in a kiss that forms another heart with their two hearts. I think that this shows us that while their love was toxic, they did love each other for who they were and not the image that they put up for others, hence them being naked and bearing themselves to each other. Also, that if allowed, they would have been together forever, hence the wedding like veil that they were wearing. Before completely moving on from this portion of the music video, I also want to go through each of the pictures shown between each of the couple's parts, as I think they're important for us to understand their dynamics as well. First, we have an image of a female sculpture with thorns coming out of her hands and her chest broken open, revealing a heart wrapped in thorns. I think this represents how love, both giving and receiving, will hurt. The statue also has some ripped tape around where the heart is now, and I think this shows us how hiding our love in fear of getting hurt will end up just hurting us even more in the long run. The next image that we have is two transparent hands gently holding a heart with a transparent heart-shaped shell around it, and the universe is in the background. I think the symbolism of this image is that love must be handled with care and kindness, as it's everything to the person giving you their love. If you don't treat it carefully, it could break. After that image, we have a picture of a shadowy figure with a veil over them and a big heart on their chest. Personally, out of all of the images shown during this part, I think this one is one of my favorites because it's so mysterious. I think that this symbolizes that everyone does have the capability to love, even the people that you don't know, you don't even know they exist. They have that capability of love within them, and they are also loved by someone else. The next short image that we have is a metallic outline of Till and Ivan's heads facing each other. This picture gives off a sort of yin and yang type image representing how opposite the two are, but also how much they balance each other out. After that, we see an image of Luca and Hyuna's relationship in the same metallic style. In this picture, Luca is crying, and on Hyuna's side is an image of a heart surrounded by spikes and what I think are two faces that I'm assuming are Hyuna and Hyunwoo inside of it. And there's also a hand holding a sword in front of the heart. The reason why I'm assuming that it's Hyunwoo and Hyuna instead of just Hyuna in the heart is because the eyes look like they're facing each other instead of being on the same person due to the eyelash direction. And there's also something that I'm assuming is blood from the pushing incident that Luca caused when they were kids that looks to be dripping from the left person's head, which makes me think that that is Hyunwoo. The way that I interpret this image is that Hyuna is protecting her heart from being exposed, and Luca is sad realizing that his actions caused her to feel like she has to hide and protect her feelings for Luca from him. The next image that we see is a ripped heart on a cross. I think this one is pretty obvious, so I'll just keep this short with saying that it represents the thought that love is sacrificial. After that, we have an image of two hands holding onto each other with a bleeding heart in between them. The heart has nails stabbing through it as well. This image is another one of my favorites from this section because it feels so raw. The way that I interpret what's happening in the picture is that they're trying to get the heart to stop bleeding from being stabbed with the nails, but it's not working. I believe that this image represents the pain and pleasure of loving another person, and how the person is that can be trying to help could also be the person that is making your troubles worse. The next image is of a white snake looking at a heart that's pierced with a sword. Honestly, I had to do a bit of research on this one because I was stumped on its meaning. A snake usually means immortality and regeneration, but a specifically white snake means purity, transformation, or healing. There is also a myth of a white snake deity that turns into a human woman, and she falls in love, marries, and has a child with a human man. So after taking all of these different interpretations into account, I think that this image might mean that there's many forms and different kinds of love in the world. The last image of this section is an upside down Sua with wings in the same metallic style that we've seen the other relationships in. She also has a halo behind her head and is missing her heart. I think this one is a little bit strange because it's the only one that doesn't have the other half of the couple. It doesn't have Mizzy in this section. And I think that is kind of important to notice. The way that I interpret this is that it shows Sua as some type of angel that's fallen, which means that we're actually seeing this image through Mizzy's eyes. We're Mizzy, rather than seeing the image in a third party like we have with the others. I believe that we're seeing this through Mizzy's eyes because Mizzy tends to refer to Sua as things that are frail, which is like a clematis, unattainable, God, or otherworldly universe. Before we move on to the next big section, we have another smaller section to go over. Throughout the music video and throughout the whole series, we see these weird looking red flowers. Honestly, I don't know if it was announced what the flowers are based off of officially, but I have seen theories that they're based off of poppies. But let me do you one better. I actually think that they're based off of a flower called poppy anemones, which I'll be referring to as their other name, windflower, for better clarity of which flower I'm talking about at the moment. So, many people have been theorizing that the red flowers in the Enact Garden and throughout the series are poppies. Poppies signify death, sacrifice, and remembrance. However, this is their meaning in the West, and it's mostly used for military, especially if they're red poppies. In Korea, poppies have a completely different meaning. They signify grace, peace, and beauty. That's why instead of poppies, I believe that they're based off of windflowers instead. The windflower, despite looking like poppies, hence their other name, poppy anemone, they are actually a completely different breed of flower that just looks really similar to poppies. They're actually related to anemones. In Korea, anemones signify betrayal, hopeless love, and loneliness. In the West, they can signify the fragileness of life, forsaken love, and lost love, because in a Greek myth, they are said to have formed from the tears Aphrodite shed when Adonis died. When we put that meaning onto the windflower, it brings us to connect the themes explored throughout the whole series, past, present, and future. I do think, though, they chose this specific breed of anemone on purpose, because no matter if you're seeing the flower as a poppy from a Western point of view or as a windflower from a Korean point of view and a Western point of view, the themes explored in the series still stand with the flower symbolism no matter which you think it is. Okay, so now we can move on to the next part I really want to yap about, which is the bathtub scene. And oh my god, can I just gush about it for a second? Because it was so beautiful and haunting. The jump cuts between the bathtub and Mizzy and Sua on the stage were just, it was just a huge whiplash. It was crazy. The bathtub parts really reminded me of Vivino's previous works with the color grading and how disgustingly blue and cool it was. Like it feels alien. It feels alien. Anyway, back to the analysis. I think that during the bathtub section, Sua was preparing Mizzy for her death. I think that when people initially see a bathtub in a regular context, they automatically think it's warm, it's cozy, but I believe that the water is cold because of the color grading during the scene. If we go by that theory and look at the lights on both Mizzy and Sua's side, we can assume that Sua is colder than Mizzy during the scene because only one of Sua's lights is green, while three of Mizzy's lights are green. Either Sua got in earlier, or she just gets colder faster because of how small and thin she is. When Sua touches Mizzy's inner thigh, Mizzy is shocked. The difference in body temperature, from my theory, must have been alarming. I think it was here that it truly hit Mizzy that Sua is going to die, as dead people have no body heat. However, despite having that realization, Mizzy smiles. Not a genuine smile, though. I think she smiled because this was the only option that they had, and she continued to want to play innocent for both her and Sua's sake. I also believe that Mizzy smiled as a diversion from those thoughts and to just be able to pretend to enjoy being touched by the person that she loved instead of being worried about what comes after their round. Since at this point, Sua doesn't know that Mizzy knows her plan to die during their round. It would be weird for Sua if Mizzy doesn't show pleasure in being touched by her at that moment. So Mizzy plastered on a happy face to avoid being found out. I also believe they had sex in that tub. Anyway, the next section that I want to talk about is when Mizzy is berating Hyuna for never coming to terms with her feelings for Luca. During this section, we get to see clips from Wej from the AU. From what I understand, Mizzy is asking Hyuna what is the point of being free if we can't use that freedom to be with the people that we love. In the AU, none of our cast is seen together, so I think it connects pretty nicely. Also, during this section, another series of pictures appear while Mizzy talks about how humans cannot love without exploiting each other. While I won't go over each picture like I did with the couple section, as all the pictures here represent sacrifice or hurt, I do want to talk about one picture, the picture of Mizzy's eye and the animal's eye. I have seen some people think that the animal is a goat because goats symbolize sacrifice, sin, evil, and they're also associated with witches, which is what Mizzy is referred to after the incident. And while that is definitely a possibility, I haven't seen anyone bring up the possibility of the animal actually being a lamb. The first picture that we see for this section is two lambs after all. Lambs signify sacrifice as well, but also innocence. I think by getting up close and personal with the lamb, it's Mizzy trying to copy and keep up with that innocent image of hers.
Hi, post filming Bambi here. I realized that I didn't elaborate as much as I wanted to on this portion of the video, so I'm going to elaborate more here. So I believe that with the Mizzy lamb eye situation, that the lamb represents Mizzy's innocent image, and that this image is supposed to be Mizzy finally confronting that image and her coming to terms with the fact that acting innocent and ignorant didn't help her get anything and didn't accomplish anything. All it accomplished was having her found family killed and her lover also killed.
After that section, we see a mirage of Sua embracing Mizzy while Mizzy cries and holds Till's supposed corpse. Throughout the series, we see Mizzy guilt-ridden over Sua's death and hallucinate her in the comics. However, instead of the scary chastising ghost that Mizzy has been seeing, Sua is a more gentle and forgiving person, which we see with her ghost covering Mizzy. The next section that I think is important is Mizzy running over to Sua when Sua was practicing her death. I think this section is important because earlier when Mizzy was confessing to Hyuna that she knew all along that Sua was planning her death, we see the same section but before Mizzy decided to run over to Sua. This part, the confession part, was supposed to give us the false impression that Mizzy is selfish and self-serving enough to just ignore and act ignorant about the decision that Sua made. However, this gets subverted in the running scene when she, after hesitating, decides to go back and comfort Sua with a hug and a kiss. I think that this scene shows us that Mizzy is not as self-serving as much as she perceives herself as. I also think that this scene confirms Mizzy's death and her finally deciding to actively save someone instead of being passive and ignorant. I believe these 2 points connect, which is why I will be talking about them at the same time. First, we know initially Mizzy was going to walk away after watching Sua practice her death. I believe that this is supposed to be hinting to us that Mizzy was going to do the same thing here during the fire. She was going to, after grieving of course, leave Till's corpse there and escape with her own life. Like how she was going to leave Sua there, practically already a corpse herself, pretending that what she did was for the best and to upkeep her innocent image. However, Mizzy didn't walk away. She runs back to Sua in the end. I think this shows us that instead of upkeeping that innocent image and being passive, Mizzy wants to actively save those that she loves, no matter if she gets hurt doing it. I think the image of Mizzy running to Sua is representative of her both saving Till and returning to Sua so she won't have to be alone in death any longer. Since the fire is the last time that we see Mizzy alive, she's referred to as a witch, and witches are known for being burned at the stake. I believe Mizzy decided to die in the fire after saving Till. Next up is another quick section. I want to talk about the 5 kids that we see near the end of the video. These kids are heterosexual mixes of the main cast. From left to right, we have Hyuna Ivan, Till Sua, Ivan Mizzy, Hyuna Luca Sua mix, 3-person mix, and a Sua Luca mix. Most of these mixes have never even spoken to each other before, which I think is a pretty important insight for knowing about the alien society. The alien society has all of this technology of genetically altering humans, but can't mix 2 women or 2 men together. A little suspicious, no? They obviously can since they do have a 3-person mix, but they just choose not to because a man belongs with a woman. It's homophobic. We also see earlier that they are currently doing an L and M mix, which the only 2 people with the initials L and M are Luca and Mizzy, which is kind of fucked up, don't you think? Cause Luca tormented Mizzy using her trauma as leverage to win round 5, and the aliens saw Mizzy beat the ever-living shit out of Luca on 2 separate occasions, and yet they're still making a little Luca Mizzy baby? Crazy. For me at least, it reminds me a lot of the sentiment when I was younger. I remember hearing this a lot, and maybe some of you have too, especially if you're a woman, where when you are bullied by a male child and you are a female child, adult would tell you, oh, he bullies you because he likes you. It reminds me of that, but taken to the extreme. The next section that I wanted to yap about is the billboard section. I talked about it just a little bit earlier, but I didn't touch on the actual subject that piqued my interest on it, the Luca's back poster. Initially, I thought that Luca died in the fire and that they just cloned him like before. But after taking a good look at the poster, I'm certain that he's the same Luca that we've seen throughout the series. And I think it's our Luca because his back is covered, his fingers are still blue, and the rings on his right finger. These points are important for us to deduce that it is our Luca and not a clone. Back during the fire on the stage, while Luca was grieving over Hyuna, we can see the fire engulf him from behind. So it's very likely that he has burn scars that he's hiding since he tends to be put in outfits that show off his back. For his blue fingers, it's caused by a circulation issue, and if they cloned him, wouldn't they have just found a way to fix that issue to make him even more perfect, you know? And finally, I think this one really solidifies the fact that it's our Luca, is the two rings linked by a chain on his right hand. In Wage, we see that in the AU, Hyuna and Luca would have gotten married. So I think that the rings that Luca is wearing in the poster are representative of his and Hyuna's wedding rings and how he will always be connected to her. But baby, you say. Wedding rings are usually worn on the left ring finger, not the right. Well, my dear friend, Hyuna died. And, that would make Luca a widower, in theory. Do you know what finger widowers tend to wear their wedding rings on? Because it certainly isn't the left. I rest my case. Okay, the last section that I want to yap about is the Till's Alive reveal. First of all, I want to apologize to the Till Alive truthers. I did not think that man was alive after getting his neck sliced open and bleeding out on stage because no one else did. My bad. I thought the continuing thing would be continuing. He's so thin, I did not think he had that much blood in him too. Okay, moving on from that. When Till drives up and into the Alien Stage Tragedy Museum, he smiles at the Ivan Mizzy kid. I believe that his smile towards that kid specifically represents him coming to terms with his feelings for both Ivan and Mizzy, and that his feelings for both of them was the same, hence Ivan and Mizzy being mixed into one human. If I had to sum up my thoughts on the themes explored in this series, I would say that this series is mostly about being in love in a society that doesn't permit that love, and how toxicity in romance can bring ruin to all parties involved. The society that the cast lives in is extremely hetero-focused. While not the most obvious within the music videos themselves, in one of the comics we get some insight on how and what the humans are taught. In this comic, Mizzy is talking with another Enact Garden student, some guy named Mole by the community. I have no idea if he has an actual name. He says that they were taught that guys and girls can't just be friends because they're bound to fall in love and end up mating. We also have all of the children that were made from the genes of our cast being in heterosexual ships of them, even characters who have never interacted before. Along with the fact that round 5 outfits looking similar to wedding attire, and when Luca circles around Mizzy, it kind of looks like sperm going into an egg. A little bit weird. From this we can see that they're not only taught that only women and men can be together romantically, but also it's subliminally communicated to them as well. If you remember that this series is made by a lesbian couple living in South Korea, the same country where same-sex marriage is still illegal, there was an uproar about there being a same-sex dating show, and how the 4B movement is still going on because of the mistreatment of women. This being a theme explored in the series, just makes a lot of sense for everything that is going on in Korea right now. The second theme of how toxicity in romance can bring ruin to all parties involved is explored in different ways with each of the couples. Ivan and Till never communicated properly or healthily with each other since day one, causing their tumultuous and undefined relationship. Hyun Luka was toxic because Hyuna was always running away from her problems and feelings, and Luka had no empathy for others and continuously manipulated the people around him. Mizisua was toxic because they continued to hold each other on a pedestal, causing an unbalanced and unhealthy dynamic between the two. At least one person from each of these ships have died while expressing their love in a toxic manner, hence the can bring ruin to all parties involved portion of the theme. Ivan died when forcing a kiss on Till, which I would like to remind the audience is SA because Till did not consent and he was very, very distraught. Hyuna died in a meaningless sacrifice to try to induce change in Luka, which I will say did work, but there was no guarantee that that was going to work in the first place. And Sua died taking the burden of losing their round and thus death from Mizzy. Okay, so I think that was everything that I wanted to talk about. Some things that I might have thought maybe have been proven wrong by now because I am making this video the same day that the post-Karma comics came out, so, and I haven't been able to read them yet because I have work in exactly 7 hours and I just haven't had the time to read them yet. It is currently 1 a.m. But I really did love watching this series. I have been a fan of Vivinos since I think the mermaid video came out. And they've always been on my radar, but they really picked up with this. This went crazy. This went crazy stupid. I got all of these standees. I got please don't fall, Hyuna. Please don't fall, Hyuna. I got this huge ass, can you see it? This huge ass mouse pad with all the main cast. This mouse pad goes crazy. I feel like this has been the first time in a while that I've really gotten into something, and I really appreciate all of the work that has been put into this series. I'm really sad that it's ending, but I'm so happy that it's ending. Like, it's better to end and have a full story than for it to go on and on forever and nothing getting solved. I'm looking at you, One Piece. Anyway, I should sleep. I have work in the morning. I have to teach kids. Alright, bye!